I didn't know I could feel invisible in a room full of people. But in the Holland family, I learned to become a ghost before I even left. My name is Roslyn, and for 8 years I was married to a man who forgot I existed the moment his mother entered the room. Tonight, like every other family gathering, I sat in the corner of Scarlett's pristine living room, watching the performance unfold. "Caden, darling, sit here beside me." Scarlett patted the velvet cushion next to her wheelchair, her voice dripping with the kind of sweetness that made my teeth ache. "Tell me about the Morrison case." My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, though I didn't know it yet, practically glowed under her attention. "We won, of course. The settlement was even bigger than we projected. That's my brilliant boy." Scarlett's eyes swept the room, landing on each of her children like a queen surveying her court. Riley, her eldest daughter, preened from the mahogany bar where she was mixing drinks. Victor, the middle son, looked up from his phone with barely concealed jealousy. Abigail, the baby of the family at 34, giggled from her perch on the ottoman. Then Scarlett's gaze found me. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Roslyn," she said my name like it left a bad taste in her mouth. "You're awfully quiet tonight." "Just listening," I replied, keeping my voice steady. 8 years of practice had taught me that engaging was dangerous, but silence was somehow worse. Scarlett's lips pursed. "Riley was just telling us about her daughter's acceptance to Princeton. Such wonderful news. Family legacy, you know." Riley beamed, raising her martini glass. "Emma's the 3rd generation to attend. Some traditions are worth preserving." The unspoken words hung in the air like smoke. Unlike some people who can't even produce the next generation. "Speaking of family," Abigail chimed in, her voice pitched with false concern. "Roslyn, honey, are you still seeing that fertility specialist? Dr. What's his name?" My fingers tightened around my wine glass. "We're taking a break from treatments." "Oh." Abigail's eyes widened with theatrical sympathy. "Well, you know what they say. When God closes a door, he opens a window. Maybe it's just not meant to be." Gordon, Riley's husband, cleared his throat. "There are always other options. Adoption. Surrogacy." "Gordon," Caden's voice cut through the suggestion like a blade. "That's enough." For a moment, I thought he was defending me. Then I saw his face, not protective, but embarrassed. Embarrassed by me, by us, by the failure I represented. "Of course, dear," Scarlett said, her voice silk over steel. "We shouldn't dwell on disappointments. Life is too short." Victor snorted from his corner. "Some disappointments last longer than others." "Victor," Scarlett warned, but there was no real heat in it. The conversation moved on, flowing around me like I was a stone in a river. They discussed business deals, vacation plans, Riley's husband's promotion, Abigail's latest charity gala. Normal family things that somehow felt like weapons when wielded by the Hollands. I excused myself to use the bathroom, needing a moment to breathe. The hallway was lined with family portraits, generations of Hollands staring down with the same cold eyes. I paused at the most recent one, taken just after Caden and I married. I stood at the edge of the frame, literally and figuratively on the outside. The bathrooms occupied. I turned to find Brooke, Scarlett's nurse, emerging from the kitchen with a tray of medications. "Oh, that's fine. I was just getting some air." Brooke's smile was kind, the first genuine warmth I'd felt all evening. "I don't blame you. These family dinners can be intense. That's one word for it." She glanced toward the living room, then back at me. "For what it's worth, I think you handle it with more grace than I would." Before I could respond, she was gone, disappearing into Scarlett's bedroom with the medications. I stood there for a moment, surprised by the unexpected kindness. When I returned to the living room, the conversation had shifted to Scarlett's health. She'd been battling cancer for months, though she wielded her illness like another tool of control. The doctors want to discuss treatment options, she was saying, but I'm more concerned about other matters. Legacy, ensuring the family's future is secure. Her eyes found mine across the room, and something cold slithered down my spine. After all, she continued, her voice carrying clearly, we can't let parasites destroy what generations have built. The room fell silent. Riley and Abigail exchanged glances. Victor actually looked up from his phone. Caden stared at his hands, and I realized, with crystalline clarity, that I was the parasite she was talking about. Later, as we drove home in silence, I caught Caden glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Not with love, not with concern, but with something that looked dangerously like calculation. I should have known then that the real performance was just beginning. The ink wasn't dry, and I was already erased. The call came at 6 a.m. Caden's phone buzzed against the nightstand, and I watched him answer with the kind of alertness that meant family emergency. What? When? His voice was sharp, awake instantly. We'll be right there. What's wrong? I asked, already reaching for my robe. Mum collapsed. They're taking her to Presbyterian. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and desperation. The Holland family had claimed the entire waiting area like conquering generals, their voices echoing off the sterile walls. Riley paced near the windows, her heels clicking an anxious rhythm. Victor slouched in a plastic chair, scrolling through his phone with forced casualness. Abigail dabbed at her eyes with tissues that looked suspiciously dry. "How is she?" Caden asked, rushing to Riley's side. "Stable, for now," Riley said, "but the doctors want to talk to all of us, together." Gordon appeared with coffee, distributing cups like he was hosting a board meeting. Franklin hovered near Abigail, whispering reassurances that sounded more like stock phrases than genuine comfort. "Family only," the doctor said when we crowded into the small consultation room. I started to step back, but Caden's hand found my elbow. "She's family." The doctor nodded and launched into medical terminology that boiled down to one simple truth. Scarlett was dying. Weeks, maybe a month if they were lucky. "We want to take her home," Riley said immediately. "She'd hate being here." "We can arrange hospice care," the doctor replied. "Make her comfortable." The ride back to the Holland estate was silent, except for the sound of Abigail sniffling. Scarlett had insisted on being discharged immediately, and now she held court from her hospital bed, which had been moved to the main living room like a throne. "Gather around," she said, her voice weaker but still commanding. "All of you." We formed a semicircle around her bed. Riley and Victor flanked her right side, Abigail and Franklin on the left. Caden and I stood at the foot, and I noticed how he positioned himself slightly in front of me, like a shield. "I don't have time for sentiment," Scarlett began, "so I'll be direct. This family has built something worth preserving, generations of hard work, sacrifice, and smart decisions." Her eyes swept over each of her children, lingering on their faces with something that might have been pride. "But legacy isn't just about money. It's about bloodline, about ensuring the right people carry our name forward." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I felt Caden tense beside me. "Caden," Scarlett's voice cut through the silence like a scalpel, "you're my heir, the one I've groomed to lead this family, but I need to know you understand what that means." "Of course, Mum. It means choosing family over everything else. It means understanding that some relationships are investments, and others—" Her eyes flicked to me, then back to him. "Others are liabilities." Riley stepped closer to the bed. "Mum, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that my will reflects my values, and my values prioritize family, real family, blood family." Scarlett's breathing was laboured, but her words were crystal clear. "Caden, you have a choice to make. Your inheritance, your position as head of this family, depends on it." The silence stretched like a taut wire. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. What choice? Caden's voice was barely a whisper. Scarlett smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. "Divorce her or lose everything." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stepped backward, my hand finding the wall for support. "Mom," Abigail gasped, "you can't be serious." "I'm dying, dear. I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Riley's eyes gleamed. "It makes sense. The family assets should stay in the family." "This is insane." I finally found my voice. "Caden, tell her this is insane." But when I looked at my husband, the man I'd loved for 10 years, married for 8, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. He wasn't looking at me with shock or outrage or even sympathy. He was calculating. "How long do I have to decide?" he asked. The question hung in the air like poison gas. Not, "This is ridiculous, Mom." Not, "I won't choose between my wife and money." Just, "How long?" 24 hours, Scarlett said. "The lawyers are already drawing up the papers." What papers?" I demanded. Victor spoke up from his corner, his voice almost gleeful. "Divorce papers, obviously, and a new will that cuts you out completely if Caden doesn't sign them." "Caden!" I turned to him, searching his face for any sign of the man I'd married. "Say something." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw my answer in his eyes before he spoke. "I need some air," he said, and walked out of the room. Riley's laugh was like breaking glass. Well, that was easier than expected. "The poor dear," Abigail cooed, but her eyes were bright with malicious excitement. "This must be so hard for you, Roslyn, but really it's for the best. You'll be free to find someone who can give you what you need." "What I need?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "Children, dear. A real family. Caden needs to think about his legacy now." Gordon cleared his throat. "There will be a settlement, of course. Scarlett's not unreasonable." "How generous," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Caden returned an hour later with an envelope. His hands shook as he held it out to me, but his voice was firm. "I'm sorry, Roslyn, but I can't lose everything my family built." I stared at the envelope, then at him. "Everything your family built? What about everything we built?" "We didn't build anything," he said quietly. "We just existed." I took the papers with numb fingers. The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. "Where will you go?" Abigail asked, and I could hear the fake concern dripping from every word. "That's not your problem anymore," I said, standing up. "Is it?" As I walked toward the door, Brooke appeared with Scarlett's evening medications. She took one look at my face and stepped aside. "I'm sorry," she whispered as I passed. She was the only one who was. By dawn, she was gone. I was out of the family, but tethered to its fate in a way none of them would suspect. The call came at 2 a.m, 3 days after I'd signed the divorce papers. I was in my temporary apartment, surrounded by boxes I hadn't bothered to unpack, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Hello?" "Roslyn, it's Brooke, Scarlett's nurse." I sat up in bed, instantly alert. "What's wrong?" "She's asking for you. She's not doing well, and she keeps saying your name. I know it's strange given everything that happened, but I'll be right there." The Holland estate looked different at night. Smaller somehow, less imposing. Most of the windows were dark except for the main living room where Scarlett's bed glowed under soft lamplight. Brooke met me at the front door. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I. She's been agitated all evening, kept asking where you were, if anyone had called you. The family thinks it's the medication, but—" She shrugged. "I've seen a lot of people die. Sometimes they need to make things right." The living room was empty except for Scarlett and the machines keeping her comfortable. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile in a way that seemed impossible for someone who had wielded so much power. "Roslyn," her voice was barely a whisper. You came. Brooke said you wanted to see me. Sit, please. She gestured weakly to the chair beside her bed. I need to tell you something. I sat, keeping my distance. What is it? I was wrong. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back. About you, about what I did. Scarlett? No, let me finish. I don't have long. She struggled to sit up straighter. I spent so many years protecting this family, building walls, keeping out anyone I thought might hurt us. But I became the one doing the hurting. Her eyes were clearer than I'd seen them in months. You were good to Caden, good to all of us, even when we didn't deserve it, and I destroyed that because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of losing control, of admitting that maybe bloodline isn't everything, that maybe the family needed someone like you more than it needed someone like me. I stared at her, this woman who had made my life hell for 8 years, now lying broken and regretful in her hospital bed. Why are you telling me this now? Because I need to fix what I broke. She reached for something on her nightstand, a thick envelope. I called my lawyer tonight, had him come here. Scarlett, what did you do? What I should have done years ago. She held out the envelope with shaking hands. I changed my will. A codicil. Legal and binding. I didn't take the envelope. I don't want your money. This isn't about what you want. It's about what's right. Her voice grew stronger, more like the commanding woman I remembered. Take it. Against my better judgment, I opened the envelope. The legal language was dense, but one section stood out in bold letters. Trustee and sole administrator of estate. I don't understand. You're the trustee, Roslyn. Everything, the house, the businesses, the investments, all of it goes into a trust, and you control it. My hands started shaking. Scarlett, this is insane. Your children, my children will get their inheritance, but only if you approve it, only if you think they deserve it. She gripped my wrist with surprising strength. You're the only one with a conscience left in this family. They'll contest this. They'll fight it. Let them try. I had 3 lawyers review it. It's ironclad. She smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it looked genuine. Besides, you were there when I signed it. You're the witness. I was the witness. You're here now, aren't you? Brooke, she called out, and the nurse appeared immediately. Bring Lucia. Tell her it's time. Lucia's here? I asked. I called her after I called you. She's been waiting in the kitchen. My friend and lawyer appeared in the doorway, looking as confused as I felt. Roslyn, what are you doing here? Witnessing a codicil, Scarlett said firmly. Both of you, come here. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of signatures and legal formalities. Lucia kept shooting me questioning looks, but I was too stunned to respond. Scarlett signed with a steady hand, then had both Lucia and me witness the document. There, she said, sinking back into her pillows. It's done. Scarlett, I started, but she held up a hand. I know you hate me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to promise me something. What? Don't let them destroy each other. They're going to be angry, desperate. They'll turn on each other like wolves. Tears were streaming down her face now. But they're still my children. Don't let my mistakes destroy them completely. I looked at this woman who had tormented me, who had cost me my marriage, who was now handing me the power to control her family's entire future. I can't promise that. Then promise me you'll be fair, that you'll remember the good in them, even when they can't remember it themselves. Before I could answer, her breathing changed, became laboured, desperate. Brooke, I called out. The nurse rushed in, checked Scarlett's vitals, then looked at me with sad eyes. It won't be long now. Scarlett's hand found mine. You may be the only one with a conscience left, she whispered. Don't lose it. She died an hour later, just as the sun was rising. Brooke called the family, and I slipped out the back door before they arrived. I sat in my car in the driveway, staring at the envelope in my hands. Inside was a document that would change everything. That would give me power over the people who had destroyed my life. Lucia knocked on my window. "Roslyn, are you okay?" I rolled down the window. "Did you know what she was planning?" "Not until tonight. She called me at midnight, said it was urgent." Lucia studied my face. "Are you going to be okay with this?" I looked back at the house, where lights were starting to come on as the family gathered to mourn their matriarch. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I guess we're about to find out." They'd learned to hunt in a pack, but they had no idea the rules had changed. The funeral was everything Scarlett would have wanted: expensive, well-attended, and perfectly orchestrated. I watched from the back of the church as the Holland children played their parts. Riley, stoic and dignified in her black Chanel suit. Victor, uncomfortable in his too-tight tie. Abigail, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief that matched her dress. Caden delivered the eulogy. He spoke about legacy, about family values, about a woman who built an empire through sheer force of will. He didn't mention me once, which was probably for the best. I left before the burial. "You sure you don't want to come back to the house?" Lucia asked as we stood in the church parking lot. "The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow." "I'm sure." I watched the funeral procession form, black cars lined up like dominoes. Let them have their moment. "Roslyn, you know they're going to be furious, vindictive, ready to tear me apart." I shrugged. Nothing new there. That evening, my phone started ringing. First Riley, then Victor, then Abigail. I let them all go to voicemail. Riley's message was crisp and businesslike. "Roslyn, I know we've had our differences, but we need to discuss Mum's arrangements. Call me back." Victor's was more direct. "What the hell are you playing at? Call me." Abigail's was pure manipulation wrapped in fake sweetness. "Oh, honey, I know this must be so hard for you, losing Mom right after the divorce. We should talk as family." I deleted them all. The next morning, I met Lucia at her office before heading to the law firm handling Scarlett's estate. "You ready for this?" she asked, straightening her blazer. "Are they ever ready for something like this?" "I meant you. I thought about that. Was I ready to face the people who had systematically destroyed my marriage, my self-worth, my place in the world? Was I ready to hold their financial futures in my hands? Let's find out. The conference room at Morrison, Blake & Associates was all mahogany and leather, designed to intimidate. The Holland family had claimed one side of the massive table like they were preparing for battle. Riley sat at the head, naturally assuming leadership. Victor slouched beside her, scrolling through his phone. Abigail perched on the edge of her chair, whispering to Franklin. Caden sat at the far end, staring at his hands. He looked up when I entered, and something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. I couldn't tell any more. "Roslyn," Riley's voice was ice-cold polite. "How unexpected?" "The deceased requested her presence," said Mr. Morrison, the lead attorney. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Shall we begin?" Of course," Riley said, settling back in her chair with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what was coming. Morrison opened a thick folder and began reading in the monotone voice lawyers perfect in law school. The standard provisions came first: charitable donations, bequests to long-time employees, Brooke receiving a generous sum that made me smile. Then came the meat of it. "To my children, Riley, Caden, Victor and Abigail, I leave equal shares of my estate, to be divided as follows." Riley actually smiled. Victor put down his phone. Abigail squeezed Franklin's hand. Morrison continued reading dollar amounts that made my head spin. The house, the investment portfolio, the business interests, all divided equally among the 4 siblings. "Well," Riley said when he paused. "That's settled then. Actually," Morrison said, clearing his throat, "there's a codicil added 3 days before Mrs. Holland's death." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "A what?" Victor demanded. "A codicil, an amendment to the will." Morrison's voice grew more formal. "It reads as follows. Having reconsidered the distribution of my estate, I hereby establish the Scarlett Holland Family Trust, with all assets previously bequeathed to my children to be held in said trust." "A trust," Riley's voice was sharp. "What kind of trust?" Morrison continued reading. "The trust shall be administered by a sole trustee who shall have complete discretion over all distributions, investments, and management decisions." "Who's the trustee?" Caden asked, though something in his voice suggested he already knew. Morrison looked directly at me. "Roslyn Evans, formerly Roslyn Holland." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the air conditioning humming, the distant sound of traffic, my own heartbeat. "That's impossible," Riley said finally. "I'm afraid it's quite legal," Morrison replied. "The codicil was properly witnessed and executed according to state law." "Witnessed by whom?" Victor demanded. "Ms. Evans herself and Lucia Martinez, attorney at law." All eyes turned to me. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded in my lap, saying nothing. "This is insane," Abigail whispered. "She's not even family anymore." "The codicil was executed before the divorce was finalized," Morrison explained. "At the time of signing, Ms. Evans was still legally a Holland." Riley stood up so fast her chair rolled backward. "We'll contest this, obviously." "That's your right," Morrison said calmly, "though I should mention that Mrs. Holland anticipated this possibility. She included a clause stating that any beneficiary who contests the will forfeits their inheritance entirely." "So we get nothing?" Victor's voice cracked. "You get whatever Ms. Evans approves," Morrison clarified. "She has sole discretion over all distributions from the trust." The room erupted. Riley started shouting about legal challenges. Victor threatened to call his own lawyer. Abigail burst into tears. Franklin and Gordon tried to calm their wives, while clearly panicking themselves. Through it all, Caden just stared at me. "Why?" he asked quietly, his voice cutting through the chaos. I looked at him. This man who had chosen money over love, who had handed me divorce papers without a fight, who had stood by while his family destroyed me piece by piece. "You'll have to ask your mother," I said, standing up. "Oh, wait, you can't." I walked toward the door, but Riley blocked my path. "You manipulative bitch," she hissed. "You planned this whole thing." "Did I?" I met her eyes steadily. "Or did you all just assume that destroying someone's life wouldn't have consequences?" "We'll fight this," she said. "We'll tie this up in court for years." "Good luck with that." I stepped around her. "But remember, every day you spend fighting is another day you don't get a penny." As I reached the door, Caden called out, "Roslyn, wait." I turned back. "What do you want?" he asked. "Money? Revenge? What's it going to take?" I looked at all of them. These people who had made me feel worthless, invisible, less than human. They were staring at me with desperation now, hanging on my every word. "I want you to remember this feeling," I said. "The feeling of having your future decided by someone else. The feeling of being powerless." I walked out, leaving them in chaos behind me. In the elevator, Lucia squeezed my shoulder. "How do you feel?" I thought about it as we descended. Like I'm finally visible again. Their faces were drained of colour, the same as when they had tried to erase me. The second will reading happened exactly 1 week later. Morrison had called to say there were additional provisions that needed to be addressed, and the family was required to attend. This time I arrived early. I wanted to watch them walk in, to see their faces when they realized I was already there, already in control. Riley entered first, her usual confidence replaced by something harder, more desperate. She'd lost weight in the past week, and her perfectly styled hair couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. "Roslyn." She nodded curtly, taking a seat across from me instead of ignoring me like usual. Victor came in next, looking like he hadn't slept. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie crooked. "This is bullshit," he muttered to no one in particular. Abigail appeared in the doorway, clutching Franklin's arm. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she kept glancing at me like I might disappear if she looked away. Caden was last. He paused when he saw me, and for a moment I thought he might turn around and leave. Instead, he took the seat at the far end of the table, as far from everyone as possible. "Thank you all for coming," Morrison began, opening a new folder. "As I mentioned, there are additional provisions in Mrs. Holland's will that need to be addressed." "More surprises?" Riley's voice was bitter. "In a manner of speaking." Morrison adjusted his glasses. "The trust I mentioned last week comes with specific conditions that weren't outlined in the initial reading." He began reading from a document I'd never seen before. Apparently, Scarlett had been even more thorough than I'd realized. "The trustee shall have the authority to distribute funds for the following purposes: education, medical expenses, housing, and business investments. However, all distributions must be approved in writing and are subject to the trustee's discretion based on the recipient's character and conduct." Character and conduct? Victor laughed harshly. "What is this, Sunday school?" Morrison continued. "Furthermore, any beneficiary who engages in behavior deemed detrimental to the family's reputation or values may have their access to the trust suspended indefinitely." "Who determines what's detrimental?" Riley demanded. Morrison looked at me. "The trustee." The room fell silent. I could feel their eyes on me, calculating, measuring, trying to figure out what I wanted. "There's more," Morrison said. "Mrs. Holland has established specific guidelines for each beneficiary." He pulled out individual sealed envelopes, each marked with a name. "Riley Holland Tucker," he read from the first envelope. "Your mother noted your ambitious nature. Your access to the trust is contingent upon demonstrating genuine remorse for past actions and a commitment to treating all family members with respect." Riley's face went white. "Past actions? Your mother was quite specific about the emotional abuse you inflicted on certain family members." Morrison's voice was clinical. She felt this needed to be addressed before any distributions could be made. "This is insane," Riley whispered. Morrison moved to the next envelope. "Victor Holland, your mother expressed concern about your gambling debts and poor financial decisions. Your access to the trust requires completion of financial counselling and a formal apology to family members you've wronged." Victor shot to his feet. "She can't do this. She's dead." "Sit down, Victor," Morrison said calmly. "There's more." He opened Abigail's envelope. "Abigail Holland Wise, your mother noted your tendency toward gossip and manipulation. Your access requires a written commitment to cease spreading rumours and malicious talk about family members." Abigail started crying. I didn't mean." "And finally," Morrison said, opening the last envelope, "Caden Holland." Caden didn't look up from his hands. "Your mother's instructions for you are the most detailed." She wrote, and I quote, "My son chose money over love, inheritance over integrity. He will receive nothing from this trust until he can demonstrate that he understands the value of loyalty and the cost of betrayal." The silence stretched like a taut wire. Caden's shoulders shook, but he didn't make a sound. "What does that mean exactly?" Franklin asked, his voice barely a whisper. Morrison looked at me again. "It means the trustee will determine when, if ever, Mr. Holland has met his mother's conditions. Riley stood up slowly. So, you're saying that she pointed at me, gets to decide whether we ever see a penny of our inheritance? That's correct. And if we don't meet her conditions? Then you receive nothing. Victor kicked his chair. This is extortion. This is your mother's will, Morrison replied, legally executed and binding. How much? Abigail asked suddenly. How much is in the trust? Morrison consulted his papers. Approximately $47 million, plus real estate and business interests valued at another $30 million. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. $77 million, more money than any of them had imagined. And she controls all of it? Riley's voice was barely audible. Every penny. Riley turned to me, her face a mask of barely controlled rage. What do you want, Roslyn? Name your price. My price? I stood up, smoothing down my skirt. I want you to remember how it felt when you told me I wasn't really family, when you laughed about my infertility, when you stood by and watched your brother choose money over his marriage. That's not, Abigail started. I want you to remember, I continued, how it felt to be powerless, to have your future decided by people who didn't care about you. We get it, Victor snarled. You're angry, but this is our inheritance, our family's money. Your family's money, I repeated. Funny how I'm suddenly family again when you need something from me. Caden finally looked up. What do you want me to do, Roslyn? Grovel, beg, tell me what you want. I studied his face. This man I'd loved, who'd thrown me away like garbage when it became inconvenient to keep me. I want you to understand what you did, I said quietly. I want you to feel what I felt when you handed me those divorce papers, when you chose them over me without even hesitating. I made a mistake, he said. I know that now. Do you? Or are you just saying that because I hold the purse strings? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I gathered my purse and stood. Mr. Morrison, please send me copies of all the documentation. I'll need time to review everything before making any decisions. Of course, and the family's requests for distributions. I looked around the table at their desperate faces. I'll be in touch. As I walked toward the door, Riley called out, Roslyn, please, we can work something out. We can... I turned back one last time. You know what the funny thing is? Your mother was right about one thing. Family should come first. Too bad you never learned that lesson when it mattered. I left them sitting there, staring at the ruins of their expectations. In the parking garage, Lucia was waiting by my car. How did it go? Better than I expected. I unlocked the car, then paused. Lucia, am I a terrible person for enjoying this? She considered the question seriously. After what they put you through, I'd say you're human. That's what I'm afraid of. They finally heard the click of the cage and realized I held the key. The first one to break was Abigail. She showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday morning, clutching a box of pastries from the expensive bakery downtown. Her makeup was perfect, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. Roslyn, honey, I brought your favourites, those little lemon tarts you always liked at the family brunches. I hadn't invited her in, but she pushed past me anyway, settling herself on my couch like we were old friends. Abigail, what do you want? I want to apologize. She set the pastries on my coffee table with shaking hands. For everything. For the things I said, the way I treated you. I was horrible. Yes, you were. She flinched at my bluntness. I know you have every right to hate me, but I need you to understand. I have children, Roslyn. 2 beautiful babies who need their college funds, their future secured. You should have thought about that before you spent 8 years making my life hell. I know. Tears started flowing, and for once they looked real. But they're innocent in all this. They don't deserve to suffer because their mother was a bitch. I sat down across from her. Tell me about the gossip, Abigail. What? The rumours you spread about me? The things you whispered at dinner parties, at charity events? Tell me about those. Her face crumpled. I don't know what you mean. The fertility clinic visits. How did everyone know about those? I never told anyone except Caden. She looked down at her hands. Caden mentioned it once, and I might have repeated it. Might have? Okay, I did. I told people, but it wasn't malicious, I swear. It was just conversation. Conversation. I leaned back. What else was just conversation? Roslyn, please. The time you told everyone at Riley's birthday party that I was probably faking the miscarriages for attention. Was that conversation too? Her face went white. You heard that? I heard a lot of things, Abigail. I was just invisible enough that people forgot I was there. She started sobbing then, ugly tears that ruined her makeup. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I was jealous, okay? You were everything I wasn't. Educated, sophisticated, independent. I felt threatened. So you decided to destroy me. I didn't think. No, you didn't think. None of you did. I stood up. You can keep the pastries. I'm not hungry. Roslyn, wait. What about my children? What about their future? I paused at the door. What about it? Can you find it in your heart to help them, even if you can't forgive me? I'll think about it. She left, but not before leaving her business card with a handwritten note on the back. Please, they're all I have. Victor came next 2 days later. No pastries, no tears, just raw desperation and barely contained rage. Cut the shit, Roslyn, what's it going to take? He'd cornered me in the parking garage of my building, blocking my path to the elevator. Excuse me? You want an apology? Fine. I'm sorry I called you a gold-digging bitch. I'm sorry I said you were probably screwing around because Caden couldn't satisfy you. I'm sorry for every shitty thing I ever said. There, happy? That's not how apologies work, Victor. Then tell me how they work. He slammed his hand against the concrete wall. Tell me what you want so I can get my life back. Your life? You mean the life where you gambled away your trust fund and had to borrow money from your mother to pay your debts? His face darkened. How do you know about that? I know a lot of things, like how you've been stealing from the family business for years. Small amounts, nothing anyone would notice, but it adds up. That's not. Scarlett knew Victor. She knew everything. Why do you think she put conditions on your inheritance? He sagged against the wall. I can change. I can get help. Can you? Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who's about to threaten me if I don't give you what you want. I would never, wouldn't you? I stepped closer. What were you planning to do if I said no? Hurt me? Intimidate me? Maybe break into my apartment and look for something to blackmail me with? His silence was answer enough. Get help, Victor. Real help. Then maybe we can talk. Riley was the most strategic. She waited a full week before making her move, then invited me to lunch at the country club, where she knew I'd feel out of place. You look well, she said as I sat down at her table. Divorce agrees with you. Cut to the chase, Riley. What do you want? I want to make a deal. She signalled the waiter for wine. A business proposition. I'm listening. You release half the trust funds to me, and I'll make sure the others fall in line. No more drama, no more fighting, just a clean split. And why would I do that? Because you're not stupid, Roslyn. You know this can't last forever. Eventually, they'll find a way to contest the will, or you'll get tired of playing puppet master. This way, everyone wins. Everyone except you mean. You get your money, but you lose control over your siblings. Her smile was sharp. I never had control over them anyway. They're too weak, too emotional. But you understand power. Do I? You're here, aren't you? You could have taken the money and disappeared, but you stayed. You want to watch us squirm? I sipped my water, considering. Maybe I do. Then let's make it interesting. Give me my share, and I'll help you make the others really suffer. I know all their secrets, all their weaknesses. You'd betray your own family. They're not my family, they're competition. She leaned forward, just like you were. And look how that turned out for me. Her confidence faltered slightly. This is different. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you're just another desperate person begging for money. I stood to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. Don't make me your enemy, Roslyn. You won't like the consequences. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. Are you threatening me, Riley? I'm warning you. I have resources, connections. I can make your life very difficult. More difficult than it already was, when your family spent 8 years trying to drive me away. I pulled my arm free. Do your worst. I'm not afraid of you anymore. As I walked away, I heard her call out, "This isn't over!" But the last one to come was the one I'd been waiting for. Caden appeared at my door on a Friday evening, holding a bottle of wine and looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Please?" I let him in, but I didn't make it easy. "Nice place," he said, looking around my small apartment. "Cozy. It's what I can afford on my secretary's salary." He winced. "Roslyn, Why are you here, Caden?" He set the wine on my counter, then turned to face me. "I want to apologize, really apologize. Not because I want something from you, but because I owe you that much." "Go ahead. I was a coward. I let my family poison me against you, and when it mattered most, I chose money over love. I chose security over the woman I married." His voice broke. "I threw away the best thing in my life because I was afraid of losing everything else. And now you've lost it all anyway." "I know, and I deserve it." He ran his hands through his hair. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to give me a penny. I needed you to know that I know what I did." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, of calculation. But all I saw was genuine regret. "Do you love me, Caden?" The question seemed to surprise him. "What? Do you love me, or do you love the idea of getting your inheritance back?" "I love you," he said without hesitation. "I never stopped loving you." "Then why didn't you fight for me?" "Because I'm weak. Because I was raised to believe that family money was more important than anything else. Because I'm my mother's son, and she taught me that love was a luxury we couldn't afford. And now I know she was wrong. Now I know that all the money in the world isn't worth losing you." I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "It's too late, Caden." "I know." Even if I wanted to forgive you, even if I wanted to try again, how could I trust you? How could I ever believe that you wouldn't choose money over me again?" "You couldn't," he said quietly. "I broke that trust. I broke us." I turned back to him. "Then why are you here?" "Because I needed to tell you the truth. Because you deserved to hear it." He moved toward the door. "And because I wanted you to know that whatever you decide to do with the trust, I'll accept it, even if it means I get nothing. Even if it means you lose everything." I already lost everything that mattered. After he left, I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by the silence I'd grown to appreciate. My phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. "Thank you for the surgery fund. Mum's doing great. You're an angel." I smiled, remembering the check I'd written that morning. Some people deserved help. Some people had earned kindness. But the Hollands, they were still learning what it meant to beg, and I was just getting started. Revenge was a dish served cold, but I didn't expect to find it so bitter. The family meeting was Riley's idea. She'd called everyone together at the estate. Neutral ground, she said, though we all knew she just wanted the home field advantage. I arrived to find them arranged around Scarlett's old dining table, like generals planning a war. "Thank you for coming," Riley said as I took the seat at the head of the table, Scarlett's old spot. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. "Let's get this over with," I said. "What do you want?" "We want to make a proposal," Riley began, but Victor cut her off. "We want our money," he snarled. "This whole charade has gone on long enough." "Victor," Abigail hissed, "we agreed." "We agreed to kiss her ass and beg like dogs. I'm done with that." Riley shot him a warning look. "What Victor means is that we think it's time to find a solution that works for everyone." "I'm listening." "We've retained legal counsel," she continued. "Our lawyer says there are grounds to contest the will. Undue influence, mental incapacity." "Your mother was sharp as a tack until the day she died," I interrupted. "Was she? Because this trust arrangement seems pretty convenient for you. The grieving daughter-in-law, manipulating a dying woman. Careful, Riley. Or what? You'll cut off my allowance?" She leaned forward. "Here's the thing, Roslyn. We don't need your permission to fight this. We can tie this up in court for years, cost you hundreds of thousands in legal fees, make your life a living hell." "You already did that, for 8 years. "This is different. This is war." Caden finally spoke up. "Riley, stop. This isn't helping." "Helping what? Helping you get back in her good graces?" Riley's voice was venomous. "Wake up, Caden. She's never going to forgive you. She's going to dangle that money in front of us forever, watching us dance like trained monkeys." "Maybe that's what you deserve," I said quietly. The room exploded. Victor slammed his fist on the table. Abigail started crying. Franklin and Gordon tried to calm everyone down while clearly panicking themselves. "Enough!" Riley's voice cut through the chaos. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to release our inheritances, all of them, or we're going to destroy you." "How?" "We know things about you, Roslyn. Things that might interest the IRS, the State Bar Association, maybe even the police." I felt ice in my veins. "What things?" Victor pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos. "Remember your little side business? The one you ran out of the house while you were married to Caden?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "The consulting work, the clients you met with, the cash payments that never got reported." He showed me a photo of me accepting an envelope from a man I barely remembered. Tax evasion is a federal crime. "That was legitimate freelance work." "Can you prove that?" "Because we have photos, bank records, testimony from people who say you offered them services that weren't exactly professional." My blood turned to ice. They were talking about the small marketing consulting I'd done to have some independence, some money of my own, completely legal, but I'd been sloppy with the paperwork. "You're bluffing." "Are we?" Riley smiled coldly. "We also have some interesting information about your relationship with Mom's doctor. All those late-night visits, the private conversations. Makes a person wonder if you were influencing her medication, her mental state." "That's insane." "Is it? Because we have security footage of you entering and leaving her room at all hours. We have records of you meeting with her lawyer multiple times. It paints a very interesting picture of manipulation and elder abuse." Abigail leaned forward, her tears suddenly dry. "We don't want to hurt you, Roslyn, but we will if we have to." I looked around the table at their faces, desperate, vindictive, united in their hatred of me. For the first time since this started, I felt truly afraid. "What do you want?" "Full release of all trust funds," Riley said. "Immediate transfer to our individual accounts. You keep whatever Mum left you directly, but the trust gets dissolved." "And if I refuse?" "Then we go to the authorities. We file criminal charges. We make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, counting down the seconds until I had to make a choice. "I need time to think." "You have 24 hours, Victor said. After that, We start making phone calls. I stood up, my legs shaky. Fine. As I walked toward the door, Caden called out, "Roslyn, wait." I turned back. "Don't let them do this to you. Fight back." Riley laughed. "Fight back? With what? She's got nothing on us." "Doesn't she?" Caden's voice was quiet, but there was something dangerous in it. Because I seem to remember a lot of family secrets that might interest people, like Victor's gambling debts to some very unsavory characters, or Riley's affair with her business partner, or Abigail's prescription drug problem. "Caden," Riley warned, "or the fact that Mum knew about all of it. Every dirty secret, every lie, every crime. Why do you think she changed her will?" The room went dead silent. "She didn't trust any of you," he continued. "She knew you'd destroy each other the moment she was gone. That's why she gave everything to Roslyn, because she was the only one with any integrity left." "Shut up, Caden," Victor snarled. "Make me." Caden stood up, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked like a man worth fighting for. "You want to threaten Roslyn? Go ahead, but remember, I know where all the bodies are buried, and unlike you, I've got nothing left to lose." Riley's face was white with rage. "You're choosing her over your own family." "I'm choosing what's right over what's easy, something I should have done years ago." I stared at him, this man who had broken my heart, who was now trying to protect me from the wolves he'd helped create. "It's too late, Caden," I said softly. "I know, but that doesn't mean I can't try to do the right thing now." I left them there, arguing among themselves, their united front crumbling as quickly as it had formed. In the car, my hands shook as I started the engine. My phone rang before I'd even left the driveway. Lucia's name flashed on the screen. "They called you, didn't they?" I said, without preamble. "Riley's lawyer just contacted me. They're serious, Roslyn. They have enough to cause real trouble." "What do you think I should do?" "Honestly, give them the money. It's not worth going to prison over." I drove home in silence, thinking about Scarlett's last words. Don't let them destroy each other. But what if they were determined to destroy me instead? That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the trust documents spread across my coffee table. $77 million. The power to control their lives, the ability to make them pay for everything they'd done to me. And all I felt was empty. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. 24 hours, don't forget." I deleted it and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow I would have to decide, give them what they wanted and let them win, or fight back and risk losing everything. But tonight, I just wanted to remember what it felt like before I became someone who held people's lives in her hands, before I became someone who enjoyed watching them suffer, before I became someone I wasn't sure I recognized anymore. Their empire is in my hands, and for once I don't owe any of them an explanation. I called the meeting for noon the next day. Not at the estate, not at the lawyer's office, but at the downtown conference room I'd rented specifically for this moment, neutral ground that I controlled. They filed in looking like condemned prisoners, Riley with her lawyer in tow, Victor fidgeting with his phone, Abigail clutching Franklin's arm, Caden bringing up the rear with his shoulders squared like he was walking into battle. "Thank you all for coming," I said, standing at the head of the polished table. "I've made my decision." Riley's lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, opened her briefcase. "Before you say anything, Ms. Evans, my client wants you to know that we're prepared to file charges this afternoon if—" "Shut up," I said calmly. The lawyer blinked. "Excuse me?" I said, "Shut up! You don't get to threaten me in my meeting." I looked at Riley. "You want to play hardball? Fine, let's play." I pulled out my own folder, thick with documents Lucia and I had spent all night preparing. "Victor, let's start with you. Those gambling debts you mentioned, the ones to Tony Marconi's crew. I have bank records showing you've been skimming from the family business for 3 years to pay them off. That's embezzlement." Victor's face went white. You can't prove—" "I can prove everything. Your mother kept meticulous records. She knew about every theft, every forged signature, every fake invoice." I slid a stack of papers across the table. "She was building a case against you when she died." "That's impossible." "Is it? Because I also have recordings. Your mother was very thorough in her final months." I pressed play on my phone, and Scarlett's voice filled the room. "Victor thinks I don't know about the money he's been stealing. The boy always was too stupid to cover his tracks properly." Victor slumped in his chair like a deflated balloon. "Riley," I continued, "your affair with Marcus from your firm, the one you've been having for 2 years. I have photos, hotel receipts, text messages. Gordon might be interested to see them." Gordon's head snapped up. "What affair?" Riley's lawyer started to object, but I cut her off. "And Abigail, those prescription pills you've been selling to your book club friends? That's drug trafficking, federal charges." "I never—" Abigail started. "OxyContin, Adderall, Xanax. You've been raiding your mother's medicine cabinet and selling them to fund your shopping addiction. I have video evidence." The room was dead silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. "So here's what's going to happen," I said, settling back in my chair. "You're going to drop all threats against me. You're going to accept whatever I decide to give you from the trust, and you're going to do it with gratitude." "Or what?" Riley's voice was barely a whisper. "Or I release everything to the police, the IRS, and the local news stations. Your reputations will be destroyed, your marriages will end, and you'll spend the next decade in court fighting criminal charges." Riley's lawyer cleared her throat. "My client would like to discuss—" "Your client can discuss it with someone who cares. This meeting is over." I stood up, but Caden's voice stopped me. "What about me?" I turned to look at him. "What about you? You didn't threaten me. You didn't pull out any dirt on me. Why?" "Because you don't get threats, Caden. You get something worse." "Which is?" "Nothing. You get absolutely nothing. No money, no second chances, no redemption arc. You chose money over love, and now you get neither." His face crumpled. "Roslyn, please." "Please what? Please forgive you. Please pretend the last 8 years didn't happen. Please give you another chance to break my heart." "I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of me. You love what I represented. Stability, respectability, someone to make you look good. But you never loved me enough to fight for me when it mattered." I walked toward the door, then paused. "The rest of you will receive your distributions according to your mother's conditions. Riley, when you complete anger management and make genuine amends, you'll get your share. Victor, after you finish gambling addiction treatment and pay back what you stole, Abigail, when you complete rehab and community service." "And if we refuse," Riley asked, "then you get nothing, forever." I left them sitting there in stunned silence. 3 weeks passed before the first one cracked. Abigail called, sobbing, asking for the name of a good rehab facility. I gave her 3 options and told her I'd pay for whichever one she chose. Victor took longer, 2 months before he finally admitted he needed help. I arranged for the gambling addiction counselling and set up a payment plan for him to repay the embezzled funds. Riley held out the longest, almost 6 months. When she finally called, her voice was different, smaller. "I want to apologize," she said, "really apologize, not because I want the money, but because I need to say it." We met at a coffee shop downtown. She looked older, worn down by months of fighting a battle she couldn't win. "I was cruel to you," she said without preamble. "I was jealous and insecure, and I took it out on you because you were an easy target." "Why?" "Because you had something I never did. You had Caden's love, real love, and I couldn't stand it. I've been married to Gordon for 15 years, and he's never looked at me the way Caden looked at you." He stopped looking at me that way long before the divorce, because we poisoned him against you. We made him choose between love and loyalty, and we knew he'd choose loyalty because that's how we raised him." She wiped her eyes. "We destroyed something beautiful because we couldn't stand to see someone else have it." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, but all I saw was genuine regret. "I'm not giving you the money because you apologized," I said finally. "I know. I'm giving it to you because your mother wanted you to have it. Despite everything, she loved you." Riley nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you." As for Caden, he never called, never begged, never pleaded, never tried to manipulate his way back into my good graces. I heard through Lucia that he'd moved to Seattle, started over with a small law practice. He sent one letter, which I threw away unopened. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. I kept the house. Scarlett had left it to me directly outside the trust. Sometimes I walk through the rooms where I once felt so small, so invisible, and I remember what it was like to be powerless. The trust still exists, still bears my name as administrator. I use it for good things now. Scholarships for kids who can't afford college, medical bills for families in crisis, small business loans for people with big dreams and no connections. Brooke sends me Christmas cards every year, updates on her mother's health, pictures of her kids. She's the only one who still calls me family. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. The revenge, the power games, the way I made them suffer. The truth is more complicated than they want to hear. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they pushed me to become someone capable of such calculated cruelty. I regret that love wasn't enough to save my marriage or my place in their family. But I don't regret making them face the consequences of their actions. I don't regret showing them what it feels like to be powerless, to have your future decided by someone who doesn't care about you. And I don't regret walking away from all of it with my dignity intact. The Holland family empire is in my hands now, and for the first time in my adult life, I don't owe anyone an explanation for what I choose to do with it. That, more than any revenge, feels like victory.